Some dude with a drone might be looking into your backyard right now. And I'm not joking. Police around the country are warning people about a huge surge in hovering drones that are going over pools, backyards, windows, driveways, and nobody really knows who owns them. Welcome back to Legitimate Cybersecurity. My name is Frank, and today I'm here with Dr. Dustin Brewer, as always. And again, we have Chris Adkins to give us some color commentary on the weird drones he's flying into your backyard and looking into your bathroom with. But there's an increasing amount of reports that I'm sure you guys have seen lately of drones that are becoming more and more, I'll say, invasive. And I find it really interesting because I'd like to know your thoughts on, I want to start with drone etiquette, because we've seen some laws that have come into place, like, for example, on federal grounds, like federal parks and so forth, like Yosemite, you can't fly a drone without very specific permission that's been given, and you have to request it. Whereas in other places, you'll just see drones flying around with a complete disregard of anyone that they may be filming, not asking for permission and things like that. So I personally don't own a drone. First, I want to ask either. Well, actually, I say that, and I've got this like right here, but this is a toy, and this doesn't count.
You can spy
but
on people with that.
Yeah, easily.
We got that
I
for my
would know.
son for Christmas like a few years ago, and I got to tell you, it is. If you're gonna buy a drone, buy a real drone, or
Yeah.
at least one that's like a couple $100 plus. Don't just get a toy one because they use the
Hard to
same
control.
Wi-Fi. There's so much Wi-Fi interference when they make these ad hoc
yeah.
things, and the antennas aren't big enough, and it's just gnarly.
It's a nightmare.
But I want to ask both of you, and I want to start with Dustin. What are your thoughts on drone etiquette? How should they be used? What are appropriate uses for them? And why do you think these are on the rise? Who's doing it? Because I do have a few answers on that when I was doing research for this episode.
I think with most things, they're becoming cheaper, right? So they're becoming more accessible for whoever to use for whatever, right? So that's part one on like who's using these. It could be anybody, right? Or why it's on the rise is because it's cheaper. The second part, or one of the other parts of your questions, the etiquette behind it. I've seen videos of online. I don't know if you one of my guilty pleasures is watching like scary encounters online, like on YouTube channels and stuff like that.
Oh,
where
yeah,
people
100%.
like,
Gary Interesting's my favorite right now,
yeah,
from time to time. Go ahead.
yeah. And so I saw one thing where there was like a guy at a campsite and he was flying a drone and he wasn't flying anywhere near the other guy's thing, but he was like, guy came over and was like, "Stop flying that drone!" Like freaking out at this guy, and I was like, "Oh, he's really freaking out." And I was like, "But I guess I kind of get it. Like, you've got like a high definition camera on there. It's flying around. Sure, you're just getting B-roll or whatever for your YouTube channel, but still, like, I can see like a camper who's like, I don't want you to be able to film my campsite, you know." So I kind of get it from that way. I have owned a drone. I owned a Parrot AR drone back in the day. When they were, I don't know, you could fly them for like 5 minutes. And that was it. It was all via Wi-Fi. That was another issue with it, is that if you ran a DDoS attack on it, it would fall out of the sky. And so there were a lot of issues, and you couldn't fly it over water. I think that was like a big no-no. I never tried to see what would happen, but I understand why you wouldn't want to.
But you bring up that DDoS attack. By the way, it is harder to protect yourself from a drone than it is from an invader. And the example I'll use is it's
Distance.
tenable for the average person to get a gun license and to own a gun, and if someone comes in, there's laws differ around the country, but if someone's coming in to invade or attack or rob, there's the stand your ground laws, you shoot them. It is infinitely harder and the processes are not fully codified, and there's a lot of nudge, wink, and so forth that you'll see at these football games and other places where they'll get these drone guns, which really it's just causing a bunch of interference in all the different frequencies to scramble it and then make it fall down, right? We as individuals can't do that because that's considered felony based off the FCC laws of working in different frequencies and so forth. Right. Yeah. Exactly. There's that dude who went to jail because he put in his truck a scrambler on all the cell phone frequencies, because he got tired of people looking at their phones when they were driving. This was in Texas, I think, Chris.
Yep.
And every day on his commute, he would drive back and forth and scramble everyone's phones. And he's probably still in jail. Meanwhile, you can go out and... So I think I solved our problem. We just shoot the drones with real guns.
With real guns. Yeah, there's a video out there of some guy whipping out a shotgun and doing that, shooting down a.
Which is
I mean,
infinitely less safe,
yeah.
infinitely more dangerous,
Well,
right? Than if you just had a very highly targeted Yagi antenna that you could point at something, right?
yeah, but like, could you trust everybody to have a highly like? Not everybody can get one of those. Well,
Well,
that's
there's
not true.
gun
Anybody
licenses
can
for a
get one.
reason. There can be Yagi antenna. Well,
It's
also
true.
anybody
Well,
can get
there
a Yagi
is. I
antenna.
mean, that's what ham radio. Like, if for ham, it's 2 podcasts in a row. I
You
brought
can
up
make a
ham
Yagi
radio.
antenna, bro, with a Pringles
uh,
can.
You can, right? But that's the whole point of a ham radio license, right? Is you can't transmit without a license and proving you know what you're doing, right? So their licensing exists for it, right? I think it's just there's so much unknown with drones, and like it's not as common knowledge as like a gun. I guess is probably the way I'm trying to phrase this, is that when it comes to transmitting on certain frequencies, it takes a lot more knowledge, I would say, than turn it off safe and pull a trigger. Then it
It
takes a lot more
shouldn't,
knowledge. It
but you're
shouldn't, but
absolutely
it
right.
does. Um,
Right.
like
Agreed.
this is the
Oh, what if we built ghost Wi-Fi guns?
go,
That could be our first legitimate cybersecurity product we
that would
sell,
be
Dustin. Where like
that would actually
no,
be
it's just the
interesting.
lower third or something. But I forget the terms they use with
Yeah.
guns, where they sell everything
Lower
but like
half?
the blasting pin, or I can't remember.
The
But like
firing pin?
we'll make them, and then we sell
Yeah.
everything except like
It's
the
just
wire,
it's
and
just a
then we literally
giant
tell
tube
them,
that looks
don't
like
use this.
it's a giant tube that looks like a Pringles can with a pistol grip on it. You put your
Yep.
Wi-Fi in,
All for the
a
low
pistol grip
price
Yagi
of
antenna.
$599.99.
Hell, man! I bet you if you go look on Maker World or Thingiverse, somebody's already created it. You can just
I
print
was
it
about to
on a
say, I think
3D printer.
that'd be a pretty easy thing. And if it was under 4 watts in the United States, you'd be okay on 2.4 and 5 gigahertz.
Yeah,
I
you're
don't know about
right.
the 6 gigahertz stuff, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then
You destroy
wait,
your own
Dustin, are you
Wi-Fi, but-
proposing we actually make it then?
I'm proposing that it's most likally legal and feasible, but we would have to talk to council about that.
Yeah.
Tune in next
we're
week
gonna have
for
a
the
lawyer
results.
on in a couple weeks. They've agreed.
Oh, really?
So yeah.
Oh,
So
Alright.
2.4 and 5 and now 6, right? Because that's unlicensed as well. Because 6 Wi-Fi 7 is on 6 gigahertz. So man, so many people have tuned out at this point. By the way, sorry.
It's okay.
But for the 3 listeners who are still listening, sorry.
Good
And
on you.
we're not selling weapons.
Thomas.
Anyway,
So I'm
go
sorry.
ahead. Go ahead. You first, because
Well,
I've got
I
more
keep
context for you guys.
The thing that keeps popping into my head, right, wrong, indifferent, is like you should have no expectation of privacy in a public place, right? And I understand that flying over somebody's backyard is not that's a private, or you should have no expectation of privacy in a public place. I said that wrong. Ooh, that could have been bad, right? The backyard's private, right? But like it's kind of on the line, like I think
On the
you go back
property
to
line, I think you
on
mean.
the property line. You go back to that camper you're talking about, right? Like the height of that drone is what causes the issue, right? Like if that thing's at 10 feet off the ground in your own backyard, that's a very different conversation, right? But if it's at 100 feet in the air, like how do you control that? You can't, right? Like you could. You go and say, if you have a drone, you can't fly it higher than the 8.5-foot fence in your backyard. Like, how do you do that? How do you enforce something like that? Like, I also come back to this. Some people are just assholes. You can't always control that.
Yes.
And my
That's
guess
true.
would be, in terms of like the who is doing it, it's the same people that would go into a McDonald's and get upset if they got a Diet Coke versus a Coke, right? And throw a hissy fit. I think it's that same style and group of people. I don't know. That's just, I don't know the answer. I do know that I've never experienced it, which is probably for the better.
Oh, you might have
you
though,
know
Chris.
of.
That you know of,
Good
and the
point.
reason
That
you
I know
might
of.
you probably have, and you don't know about it. And Dustin, I also want your opinion on this. There are insurance companies now who are flying drones around neighborhoods to get visual data on yards and houses and so forth, to then deny insurance coverage, increase the
Really?
price of premiums. What's everyone's thought on that now? Oh, Chris, your family's in insurance.
Yeah, we are. A lot of my family is. I know like roofers use it. Like that's a common practice, especially with roofers and home inspectors too. I did not know that insurance companies were doing that. What are my thoughts on insurance companies flying? Okay, there's one thing that will always remain true about insurance companies is data is king, right? And the more data you have as an insurance company, the better risk decisions you can make. and they're in the business of collecting data. So the more they can get within the bounds of the law, they are 100% going to do it. Does that make it right? Does that make it ethical? My opinion, no, right? Get that crap away from my house, right? But they're going to continue to do that. So whatever the next thing is, they're going to keep going when it comes to insurance, right? Because that's their business. Their business is data and charging premiums, across the board, right? I hate it. I don't like it at all. Like, so what are they now? I'm just word vomiting. I guess they're looking at. They want to look at the roof, right? They want to see if you're potentially maintaining the property. Like,
They're
I don't
denying
know.
coverage based on the state of people's backyards
Oh, because
and what
see,
they
data,
have back
right?
there and how cluttered it looks.
They've done correlations, right? 100%. I guarantee they've done correlations between number of claims and cost of claims for the state of out external part of a property. And they're collecting data. Like, I don't remember. There was a certain example of Android versus iPhone usage, right? I think it had to do with renting properties that I had seen. Like,
Wow.
there was some broker or landlord that would not rent a property to somebody who used an Android phone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like,
That's just good
once
business,
again,
Chris. Come
well,
on.
is it?
I'm joking.
Is it? Like, you know what I mean? Like, because there's so much data out there on these things. This, I guess that makes sense. They're looking at the state of a property and how you maintain the backyard and front yard to determine coverage.
I do
right?
know that Kayak got in a lot of trouble because they were charging people who had a MacBook user agent more money than people who had a Windows or any other type
Yeah.
of user agent, because they're like, they'll
Yep.
pay more for their vacations. Dustin, what do you think about this? Is this, because as I like to remind everyone, you are a trained and experienced futurist. Where do you see this going? If drones are now allowed to fly over my house, does it count as peeping Tom if, like, I don't have my stuff closed? Like, what kind of is that jail? Is peeping Tom's illegal, right? Like,
Yeah.
whose responsibility is it to close the shade?
Well, I mean, it's probably your responsibility, but also there's an expected amount of privacy on your own
Privacy.
property. So, like,
Exactly.
if they hop the
Okay,
fence
yes,
to look
okay.
inside of your window and see you taking a shower, good for
I am
them.
not an exhibitionist as such.
That's right.
But okay, so as you're seeing this evolve, where do you see this going? What do you think is going to happen, and how are people going to react, and who's going to get the most consideration?
So I think that this has been going on for years. Like, I don't necessarily think this is true. I think it's just kind of in the spotlight now, because, like you said, like we kind of already talked about, it's it's becoming more widespread. It's easier to get a hold of these things and easier for really anybody to do it. On the insurance side, I thought that was a real quick. It's an interesting point where it's like these correlations that are here's who will pay more money, here's who won't pay more money. Sounds an an awful lot like a thing I like to call pseudoscience, because
Yeah.
it's not really like correlation and causation, right? I know
Not the
with risk
same.
analysis that's a big thing, right? They're like, yeah, correlations and causation, we get it, but even so, like, just because your backyard is cluttered doesn't necessarily mean, like, I would think that income would have more to do with what you're willing to pay with something, and they asked that question already. So what really are they going to find out from kind of looking in your backyard? You're cluttered and you buy shit, like, okay, and
It's a very subjective thing, right? But depending on who looks at the image, two different impressions, right?
it's right. So I am interested on the internal processes, although I know I will never know
Mhm.
it unless I go work for an insurance company. So probably will
Where
never know it.
where do you think
But
the line's drawn there with discrimination, though? Right? At what point does it turn into a level of discrimination? Like, because you can't make insurance decision or any type of business decision based on certain things such as religion, race, ethnicity, stuff like that.
technology
So
usage, because the Android Apple thing does not sound illegal to me. It sounds really crappy, but it does not
it
sound
is
illegal.
crappy. It's
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I
So
interrupted you mid thought. Please continue.
No. Okay, so then back to your original question, kind of like, where do I see this going? So, until we have some kind of regulatory body come in and say you cannot fly, and I know we do. We have technically the FAA is going to dock you if you do something
When
stupid.
yeah,
I know the
when
But
it's turned
that's
on, we
sorry.
have the FAA when it's turned on and funded when
oh
it
yeah,
works.
fair enough. Yeah.
Well,
When the
and
government
that's also assuming that the person that owns the drone got a license through the FAA, right? Like,
Yeah,
they
you can buy a lot of
yeah.
drones without licenses.
Yeah, a bunch. DJI, go
yeah, and
eBay,
and you can
$200.
get a gun without a license too, right? Like,
Mhm.
even if it's required in
Fine.
your locality. Some localities it's not, right? So, like, it is what it is. And so the first thing you have to do is the regulation part. The second thing you have to do is the enforcement part. And so, that's the big thing here. We already know that, with banking regulations and whatnot, we see these banks, these massive banks getting charged, $13 million in penalties for laundering money for a drug cartel or something like that. And they're like, okay, well, we made 20 billion off that drug cartel. So the 13 million, here you go. It's the cost of doing business for some people, right? But you have to make those punishments meaningful enough for people to deter people from doing it, right? Or to deter companies from doing it, to deter those insurance companies from like, you can't go and collect drone data, and like that is an invasion of privacy, right? Like look into somebody's backyard. However, what they might say is like, well, we can just send somebody out to assess it then. We'll just send a person out to go and assess and go look in their backyard anyway. Like we're going to do this anyways, kind of thing. So there's going to be a back and forth for a very long time. And in the meantime, consumers like ourselves will just kind of be like hanging out. And then, there's going to be naked pictures of us on the, internet because everybody
Ooh,
wants to see that.
you don't want to see
But,
that.
Yeah.
Trust me.
but so,
That's
yeah.
going to be
So
a real niche right there if they're coming to find me.
the big thing here, though, is the conversation that's starting to happen already, not just on this podcast, obviously, but also within those regulatory bodies, right? So making sure that we're paying, the people, at least in the United States, paying the people that are in charge of our policies, are aware that we're worried about these types of things, and they need to do something about it. This is easily a bipartisan issue in the United States. Well, okay, I shouldn't say that. This should
I
be a
don't know if I'd say
bipartisan issue
easily.
in the United States. But yeah, so it all kind of comes down to that. Yes, cameras are going to get better, things are going to get cheaper, materials are going to get lighter, they're going to be able to fly faster for longer, single charges, have better resolution. Not much can stop that, except for, as we kind of talked about in our last episode, the lack of knowing how those things work, right? And so, like, you really kind of have to know, like what we talked about with cell phones, where it's like, who's susceptible to this? It's everybody, because not very many people actually know how cell phones, magic internet bricks work, right? Kind of the same with drones. You can like there's a little bit more to them as well. And like if you want to build something that is kind of cutting edge, or if you want to buy something that's cutting edge, you still kind of have to know what you're doing with it. So that's a big part too. And then one falling out of the sky, hitting somebody on the head and killing them, that's probably going to be a turning point as well. It sounds
Now,
terrible.
I want to bring up.
I don't mean to
Yeah, you're
laugh.
right,
My
though.
bad part.
That's what it takes
Now,
sometimes.
I want to bring up another point. So, if you'll recall, and I'm really trying to pull back some information here. There has been instances of drones that have worked over the Wi-Fi and have been completely unencrypted with no Wi-Fi protections, allowing people to simply associate to that Wi-Fi and see everything on it. Now, if somebody did that, and we're getting into interesting waters here, if somebody did that, there's no this gets into the whole open door, discussion, right? Where if a door is open and you can see through it, should you walk through it? If there is a drone with an open, unencrypted Wi-Fi access point attached to it, that should you associate to it, and should you then fly it? Because there have been instances, both big implications and small, in the past that have had these. What are your thoughts there then, as far as, do you think that type of hijacking, because we deal with this type of hijacking in cybersecurity all the time, what are your thoughts on, is that just, tit for tat there, or is that something that should be observed and just not taken advantage of?
Oh God, why you gotta ask such difficult questions, Frank?
Sorry.
Like half of me is like,
Sharpshooting Chris.
yeah, half of me is like, you're the idiot who bought a drone and didn't know what you had, and it's got all this open communication. That's your own fault, right? The other part of me is like, that's somebody's property, right? Especially if you were to do damage to it or destroy it. I don't know, moral quandary, man. Like, I tend to lean towards the don't be an idiot, don't buy a drone that's unsecure. You should know that before you buy it, right? It's kind of like the TP link conversation we had on the last episode, right? Don't buy something that is bad, right? You wouldn't go to the grocery store and buy rotten fruit, right? Like,
what if you were the U.S. military, though?
I've not heard this story, so this is the first thing. I didn't know this.
2009.
Okay.
Multiple news outlets reported that Iraq insurgents were hacking Predator drone feeds because things are not encrypted. There's CNN articles, CBS. It's all over the internet. So the implications there, then, yeah, I agree with you. But clearly, they thought
But
they were
that's a
buying the good shit, and
yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. But that's like a big difference between a military action, right? Like you don't think, well, I'm not going to say that. Like other countries have done that. That's just warfare, part of the deal, right? You're taking advantage of a vulnerability, whether it's in a person, a piece of technology, a piece of equipment. Oh no, did I just?
interesting note: if you go to eastern Ukraine right now, you'll see thin fiber optic cables throughout all of the forests and the tree limbs and on the top of the trees because the drone usage has
Takes
gotten
time.
so intense and the combating with the different signal fryings has become so intense that they have to attach thin wires and fly the drones off long like fiber fishing lines to then explode and so forth.
Pretty cool. I think I
I don't
cut
know,
out
Dustin.
there.
What are your
Sorry, guys.
thoughts?
Yeah, morally, I don't have an issue with it.
The
As
end.
weird as that
Love
sounds,
it.
I don't.
Thank you,
Yeah,
doctor.
no, I don't. I mean, like, what you have an open Wi-Fi, and it's not even connected to the internet. So, like, you have an open Wi-Fi thing that you're not even going to have like theft of service if you did like. Because that's the thing. If you connect an open Wi-Fi thing and you start, using bandwidth, then technically it's theft of service, but also technically you didn't really put a password on there, so there's no
Yeah.
door. So that is like even for that, that's like maybe gray area for me. This, you have an open Wi-Fi access point that connects to some kind of device that's just hanging out and it's just there. Sorry, I don't have an ethical dilemma with that because that's just the thing. If you don't want people on there, then you need to lock it down, and that's it. Period.
You've changed, Dustin.
I
You've
know.
changed.
I used to be cool. Now I'm just me.
Yeah. No, that
So,
makes a
but
lot of sense.
part of this has to do with height, though. I feel like as well, right?
Mm,
Because
Yeah.
uh, when we're talking about the height of a drone, a lot of people don't even notice it. If this is going on, do you think there should be a requirement to be notified, whether it's the insurance company or anyone else? Should you? Because you can, right? You can request not to be filmed, right? And that is you have a right not to be filmed and have your identity, recorded and so forth. Where do you think the line's drawn there? Because when you don't, should there be altitude restrictions for these types of things?
I hold on real quick. The notification thing, right? So like you get notified when an inspector comes to your house, right? An insurance company, right? As far
I've
as I
never seen
know,
one. I've never
I've
received
never have
notice.
either, but
Maybe it's
I
different from
would
state to state.
maybe, but my assumption would be that if an inspector is going to come to your house, they would have to notify you. I mean, it is your property after all. Like I would think that same logic would apply if an insurance company is going to fly a drone over your property, right? They've got it. Now I'm going to have to go
Do
look
they
this up because
notify
I
you when
don't
they're
know.
using satellite imagery that they've paid for to have more current imagery in order to evaluate your backyard? That's
I'm
the next one.
sure. I'm sure we've clicked yes on some privacy policy somewhere for some Google thing that allows them to sell that data and use it for those things, right? Like the height thing, though, I don't. How would you restrict that? How would you? Well, not how would you restrict it? How would you prevent it? Would you put a control within the drone? Would you put something in the drone, or do you just trust people to do it?
Well, part of it I think is interesting because it comes to air rights, you know? For example, you look at New York City. No, for real. You look at New York City and there's different buildings will sell the air rights to buildings that are next to them so that they can build their buildings higher, right? But that's not universal and that's not everywhere else. So do you think that there should be some type of air rights consideration that goes, to the heights of skyscrapers for a lot of these organizations for everybody? Like I know there is an FAA limit and there's a height restriction with a lot of FAA considerations, but should the individual who lives in a specific house on a specific plot of land have a level of ownership up until the FAA limit?
Sort of like mineral rights, but the other
Exactly,
way. Yeah,
but the other way.
yeah.
What are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
my initial thought is actually it's a question, right? That's just who I am. Does that already exist? Right? Like logically in my brain, it makes sense that something like that already exists, but I don't know the answer to that. I don't expect you guys to either, right?
I'm gonna
But
ask though. Keep going.
yeah, I would be curious if that's something like that already exists. Cause I know like with mineral rights, just because you buy a piece of land doesn't mean you always get the mineral rights. It's not just included, right? Um,
For real?
yeah,
I
100%,
don't know
right?
how
Like
any of that works.
yeah, go look at your the deed for your house, right? A really, really high possibility that you don't own the mineral rights to your property. You own from a certain depth up. But like logically in my head, it would make sense that yeah, a property owner would own up to a certain height. I don't know what that height is, right? I think there's a lot of deed restrictions and city restrictions that would go into that. Because there is already restrictions in most jurisdictions that you can only build so high, right?
Mhm.
So even on in a residential neighborhood, I keep coming back to the how would you enforce it though? Like, are you going to have cops running around with something that measures distance of drones in the sky? Like, how do you eat? If you were to put something like that into place, how would you even enforce it, right? Is a law any good if you can't enforce it? Another philosophical question, man. You guys, I don't like this. I don't like this podcast anymore. It's too much philosophy.
Neither do our listeners. So it's
Yeah,
okay.
we didn't. Yeah,
Sorry.
we didn't ask you if you should be allowed to baptize drones yet, so it's okay.
Yeah, that's next.
Right.
Dustin. I want to hear Dustin your thoughts too, because I've an answer to part of your question, Chris. Do you think there should be a limit for people, and what should that limit be for height and airspace ownership above one's house?
Yeah, so there is, and I don't know if you want to go into it, Frank, but
Yeah.
there is a you
In
do own
Maryland,
the.
and so it's
Go ahead.
called what I've got right here is the space directly above your roof and the height needed for construction, maintenance, antennas, solar panels, and so forth. You do own, it's called the immediate reaches. Now in Maryland, through case law and examples, it's been mostly up to about 200 feet. But what I've got right here, also, FAA doesn't start, it doesn't start till 400 feet. So that means between 2 and 400 feet, drones there, they can fly there, right? And then take the pictures, take the imagery, do whatever they want, and there's not much to stop them. Now, my question off of that is, I guarantee you, somewhere online we can find how high Progressive and Geico and so
Flies
forth
their
fly their
drones.
drones, and we only need what, like 27 more people for a class action. I'm just throwing that
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah, let's do it. So, but that said roof. What about the backyard or the front yard? I only have a backyard.
I
That's why I
mean,
keep
like
saying backyard.
the immediately reachable area, it says, for like the whole
Huh.
space.
Interesting. Okay.
Beside-
Yeah, I would say, and
Yeah, go
no,
ahead.
but and what I'm reading here is that you own the airspace above your until you get into federal space, which is
400 feet?
500 feet in urban
Oh.
areas and 1,000
Mine
feet in
says
rural
immediate
areas.
reaches. Federal is 400. Federal is 400, but I don't have the defining it. So I like your
Didn't
answer
know that.
more. So there you go.
So really, really weird off thing that I just thought about. Have you guys seen the dude who built the bathtub drone and he can sit in and he like takes it to go like eat and stuff? No, you should check it out on YouTube.
What
It's
the hell?
pretty amazing. He made a bathtub, like a foot bath, those like the bathtub with the feet, the old school ones.
Yeah, claw
He
tub?
turned that into a drone and he flies around town on it.
Like a
So I do
really
wonder how
heavy
he
cast
does
Wait,
that.
like an ultralight?
No, I think it's like an iron, like the cast iron tub. I don't know. I'll have to go look at it. I swear to God,
Is
I've
he
seen it.
in
I'm
it?
not
Is he
making this
in it
up.
like a
Yeah, he's
like
in
a
it.
pilot?
Yeah.
That's wild.
Imagine, no, what's your obituary going to look like with that shit? Who's going to take you serious? Who's going to take you
Died
serious?
flying his prize claw tub drone.
That guy who like tied himself to a chair and put like a bunch of balloons on it, and then he went up in the
Oh,
air.
that monk?
No, this was a man. Like a man. Like a monk can't be a man.
I think monks.
This was like a citizen, if
think
you
they're
will.
only
This was a non-religious member of society who
How
like.
do you know he wasn't religious, Dustin?
I guess you're right. You're right. He could have been a priest. I don't know. He was not wearing a
That's with
collar.
you.
There was
But
one
he
instance
had
of a monk that did it, but continue.
he had a BB gun with him, and so his idea was like if he got too high, he would just like start shooting the balloons.
Oh my
And then,
gosh.
but forgot to start shooting the balloons at some point, and so they had to go. I think they had to go like rescue him in like a plane or a helicopter. So I don't even know
God.
how they did it, but they had to like go get him up in the stratosphere.
I bet he didn't.
Funny.
I bet he didn't check the BBs against the tensile strength or the surface strength
Of
of the
the
actual
balloons.
balloons,
Could be.
and that's what happened in that instance.
I assume
Oh
the
my
guy
God.
he was probably using weather balloons or something, huh?
Yeah, I don't
not
think it
just
was like
standard.
like up, like where he just like
No.
inflates a bunch of balloons.
Well,
and flies
in
Your
the case
Party
of the
City
monk,
latex.
he took off in like Brazil, and his goal was to go across the Atlantic. Which first, maybe baby steps is my first suggestion
Mhm.
there. But like apparently, like he was doing great for maybe a day or two, and then he just disappeared, and they ended up finding like just all these sad ass balloons in the North Atlantic.
Oh,
And yeah.
That's not
that's
good.
so sad.
And then there's the
Drones.
boy in the balloon. Let's not forget that either.
Oh yeah, balloon boy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Was it balloon?
Probably.
Yeah,
So there's a
it
Netflix
was.
special for anyone who's interested in that.
That's right.
Anyway,
Yeah.
we are coming up on time.
Yeah.
Again, we want to thank Chris for coming to the show.
Thank you.
We appreciate you taking the time to talk about drones and putting people in balloons and how we'll
Chris
die.
is like, I'm never coming on the show again.
Yeah, he's never coming back.
I'll come
He's
back
never
whenever you
coming
guys want. We went
back.
from drones spying on people to balloons. Like, this is amazing. I love
Yeah.
this. Thank you
Well,
for
I'm
having me, guys. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Well, thank you for coming. We really appreciate it. Until next week, well, the holidays are coming up, so if you see a bit of a delay from us, it's not us. It's clearly you celebrating holidays. I know, I'm kidding. It's definitely the holidays. But until then, stay safe, stay secure, and enjoy drones appropriately. Have a good one.